Juniper Mead!
Is it gin yet? I mean, is it done yet? Okay, so something we noticed with this is I saw the airlock and went, well, that's kind of weird. It stopped sooner than it seemed. Like it just showed neutral pressure, and I thought that's just odd.
But on closer investigation, you can see these tiny bubbles.
Yeah, it's still totally working, but you know what? We're going to give it a test anyway. But this is something we noticed with these new silicone stoppers that we got. It's not really sitting in there. Like it pops right back out. It doesn't hold. The rubber ones actually seem to grip a little bit better. I thought the silicone was better at first, but it seems like you have to push them way in or else they do not stick. And I already had one that almost went inside, and I don't want to have to go through the hassle of pulling it back out. So we're going to take a quick reading on this guy. Now this was started almost 4 weeks ago, so it's been a while. It's a good time to take a reading, give it a shot, maybe give a little taste of it, see if we like it, see if it needs anything. Okay, so this was done with EC 1118 champagne yeast, so this should go super high. It started at 1.128, which isn't quite as high as I thought it could be. And right now, it's actually at 1.030. So, being that there's still bubbles, this is not done. However, good time to take a taste, see how it's doing. See if we need to change anything, add anything, that sort of thing. It is cloudy. Notice the very small pore size. We're not going to be racking this or anything yet. It's just not ready for that. Yeah, it's got the smell of a very young mead. Don't really get the juniper berries. I do get that grapefruit taste or smell, which I attribute to young mead.
I got a little bit of the juniper that...
Did you? Go ahead, take a little taste.
It takes a while, but you can get it.
Yeah, I totally do. It's definitely young, definitely green. Actually, it's better than I expected it to be, though. It does taste a little bit better. I am not a fan of gin or juniper, so I'm trying really hard to be objective. This isn't for me. This is for her. But, you know, I do have to taste it and test it along the way. I see the potential, and I think this is going to be good. I think it's going to need a lot more time, though. I think probably another 2-3 weeks before it finishes. It might even have to get back sweetened, and then let it keep going and age some. What do you think?
My question for you, though, is how much longer do we want to leave the juniper berries in there?
Oh, do you think they're overpowering it?
No, but I don't know how much more we want to extract out from them.
Okay. If you want to, we can rack this to a wide mouth today and let it finish out that way. Remove the juniper berries. It's still going. So my only worry is if we rack it right now, we could harm the colony.
Yeah. Let's let it go.
We could do a rough rack where we shake it all up, pour it through a sieve into a wide mouth. This is already at the point where it's past any worry of vinegarization or anything like that. So it's relatively safe to do that.
Were you feeling like you were getting enough of the juniper flavor?
Yeah, I definitely felt I was getting more than enough of the juniper flavor.
All right, so you're with me on...
I'm not against the idea.
racking?
I'm not against the idea. We can actually just stir this up and siphon it.
Okay.
Is probably the safest way. So, all right, change of plans. We are going to rack this. Okay, so the way this is going to work, it's actually pretty simple. All we're going to do is what we're calling a rough rack. We're basically going to move it from this container into that container and leave the juniper berries and the zest behind, but keep the yeast colony. Now, how do I do that? Shake it up. And I want to make sure I get everything off the bottom moving around. And I'm degassing a bit as I do this, so it gives me an extra layer of protection. Everything coming out of here and going into there has CO2 coming out of it, so not really as much of a worry.
So my vessel is all foamy because everything has been sanitized in the red bucket of sanitization.
just like saying that. Okay, so I'm going to take the cap off the end of my siphon and just put it all the way to the bottom and get this going. Now, they're the same height at the moment, so we need to lower this one. You've seen us rack stuff a million times. It goes from point A to point B. This thing needs to be higher than point B. That's it. The auto siphon is your friend. A lot of people want to argue, oh, I don't want that. It's $10, $12, something like that. It's not an expensive item. They last for years. Do yourself a favor, make your life easier. Just do it. Doing it through just tubing is much more complicated than it needs to be and can make a mess. You can waste things, you can dilute things. It just really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Okay, so for those of you that didn't understand what we just did, we shook everything up. We got the entire colony, all the sediment, everything in there moving around so it could be sucked up and put into this jar. Let me put a lid on while I talk. And what we did was basically siphon it off and leave the solids behind, the juniper berries, because Derek has felt that they had extracted enough. So we don't want to over extract and get, all juniper. We want it to taste like mead. So that's why we did that, if that didn't make sense the first time around.
If we attempt this mead or something along these lines again, we might actually put the juniper berries in something that would make it more easy to remove.
Sure.
Like maybe a bag or even one of our strainers from the rumble jar.
Yep. The difference is when you do that, you're going to lose more space to whatever container you're putting them in. And this jar, well, it's a 1 gallon. So if I do that, now I'm going to get less than a gallon. See, we have a full 1 gallon of product right now. When that drops out, it'll probably be very, very close to a full gallon. That's why I like to do that in these. Now, we do have the 1.4 gallon fermenters that we could totally put it in a bag, but I don't think we had those at the time that we started this one. Anyway, so what are we going to do with this now?
We're going to let it sit
for probably a few weeks. Let this finish out, let it clear out. We'll come back with another reading and more information.
We're back with Juniper Mead. It's been about a month, so it is time to rack.
But before we do that, we actually want to take a reading on this and see if there's any corrections we might decide to make. So I'm, reading happy lately. I just like taking a lot of readings. What can I say? It's a good thing. So this was rough racked, all right? What that means is that we just took all the solids out and we left the colony of yeast. And today we are hoping to do the real racking, but we want to make sure that fermentation is actually complete first. That's not floating too high. Last time it was a 1.030. Let's see where it's at this time. Oh, it looks a little bit lower, kind of like a 1.122 or it looks like 1.022, which that seems pretty reasonable to me. Let me just make a note of that. That's 8 more points over a 4-week period. Safe to say it's pretty much done. It's not going to go much further than that. Let's find out how we did for alcohol, though. This started with a 1.128 OG. So 1.128 minus 1.022 times 135. That puts us at 14.31%. Now this did use EC1118 yeast. That's kind of interesting. But I know that juniper seeds are somewhat anti-biological in properties. Anti-biological? Antimicrobial in properties. So they will kill off some of the things and make it harder for the yeast to ferment. Contrary to what some people think, that's why I use this yeast instead of other yeasts.
Now, if we weren't a YouTube channel trying to get information out to our audience in a timely fashion, we probably would let this sit for a little while longer, like another week, in this container as is, and take another reading just to make sure it was done.
Because that's how we tell you to do it.
We are a YouTube channel that's trying to get information out in a timely manner, so we're just going to go ahead and rack anyway.
But we are going to take a little tasting just to see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. As you can see, it's relatively clear. It's still got a little bit of haze. That's going to clear in time. This is 9/9, so today's 11/3. It's like a little over a month. It's like 5 weeks old. It's not even all that old.
It actually has a really pleasant aroma, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Actually really happy with that. That's pretty good. And I don't like gin because of the juniper berries.
But I do.
Yeah, but she does. It has a gin-like quality. It really does. It's like a fermented gin rather than a distilled gin.
And yes, Savvy, if you're watching, we'll share a bottle with you.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I actually hope it doesn't go any further. I hope that it sticks around that 10-20 mark. Really just seems like a nice sweet spot for it. Get it? Sweet spot. So we're going to rack it into this. And the reason we're putting it into another container of the exact same size is because there's just a fine layer of lees on the bottom here. There's not a huge amount, so I don't think we're going to lose all that much product today. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
And it is the first official racking, so I'm just going to go all the way to the bottom and let it do what it's going to do. It will suck up some of that lees, and that's okay. It'll settle out in conditioning phase. I do believe this is nice as it is. I can't imagine anything that we were going to change. I was even considering putting it on some oak or wood for a little while, but I don't think that's going to help. Oaking things tends to make overly sweet less sweet, and it makes harsher flavors more round. This isn't any of those things.
Yeah.
It's actually quite nice. I think oaking it might actually mellow it too much to where you'd lose that subtle. The juniper is actually more subtle than you think. I got a lot of honey taste, not just the harshness of the juniper. Juniper tastes like pine trees to me because that's what it is. But I do believe that with a little bit of aging, like just a month, maybe 2 months, this will actually be a really nice mead. It's not overly sweet. It's got a sweet flavor, but it's not like, you know, that cloying thing. Because I think the tartness and the slight bitter flavor from the juniper really cuts through that sweetness. She's over there smiling. You know she likes this one. As predicted, didn't lose much at all. Just the little bit that's in the bottom of that bottle. And when I bring this guy up, so as you can see, it's past the shoulders, which means there's less headroom. I'd be happier if it was more like up here, but it didn't start there, so there's no way more liquid would get there. So I'm really happy with this, and now we're just going to put a lid and an airlock on this. Freshly out of
the red bucket of sanitization!
Yeah, it just dripped all over the place. Let me wipe that up. And what are we going to do with it now?
We're going to let it sit.
Probably, I'm going to let this one go a while because I want to see this clear up. So this is like 11 weeks old now, okay? And we started it with all the stuff, you know, if you watched the video. It's 3.5 pounds of orange blossom honey. I'm reading here. We added an ounce of dried juniper berries, which I think was a good call. 1 clove, half a zest of an orange, half a teaspoon of yeast hulls, a packet of EC 1118 yeast for all you people that think I hate that stuff. No, we use it once in a while. And we had an OG of 1.128. About a month in, we racked it. We did a rough rack, basically. We just took all the berries out. And at that point, it was at 1.030. We gave it about 4 more weeks, and it dropped down to 1.022. It's been about 4 weeks since then. Not quite, but just about. So I want to give that a reading and see where it's at. We're hoping to bottle this today. Initial impressions, it smells like a pine tree. Which juniper is pine, so, you know, that kind of makes sense.
For those of you who are unaware, Brian is not overly enthused by the concept of this mead, as he doesn't appreciate gin, but I do. So...
And that has come up as a theory as to why we used EC 1118 in this, because she thinks I wasn't going to like it no matter what, so I used yeast that I wouldn't like. I don't believe that's actually true, but subconsciously, maybe. Yes, Derica likes gin. I don't. We'll just leave it at that. Okay, good. This went down to 1.022, which means it stayed the same as the last time. So it has not fermented more, which some of you are probably thinking, but that means that there's residual sweetness, and this is EC 1118, known to crunch through sugars. Yeah, well, juniper is also antibiotic, so there's a good reason why it didn't. I'm just going to pour some of this right into one of the bottles, because we're just going to rack right into bottles today.
Invert your eyes.
Yeah, nobody watch. I'm going to spill it. Some people throw the sample away because they didn't sanitize in
the red bucket of sanitization!
We're not some people. I just poured it in there because if I pour it right back in here, it has a tendency to make the least just kind of go crazy. But we do want to give this a taste before we bottle. Now, first, right off the bat, it is not clear. We waited 4 weeks to do this because I wanted it to clear some more. Will it clear in the bottle? Maybe. Don't know. It's clear enough. In other words, it's not soupy. I can actually see through it at this depth, okay? So its clarity is like a 5 out of 10. It's not real clear, but that doesn't actually affect the flavor when it's to this point. If it was soupy, it might.
If we prioritize clarity over flavor, then at this point we would probably cold crash it first and see if that works.
Yeah,
And if it
that might
didn't,
help.
then we might use a clarity agent.
No, we
But
wouldn't.
we do
yeah.
not prioritize
Right.
clarity over flavor. And
What she
we
said.
know that pretty much all clearing agents remove flavor as well
Yeah, to
as
some extent.
particles. So
Because the flavor is in the particles. So if you take the particles away, the flavors go away too. How much? Well, that's debatable.
Yeah.
And it depends on the brew.
Yeah.
Now, you might be asking, why didn't you cold crash it? I'll be honest. It's because the fridge that we would use for cold crashing is full with brews.
Yeah.
So we don't have room. Otherwise, I might have tried it on this one.
Yeah.
But not a big deal. The smell in the glass is much less intense than what I got when I first opened this up. Not as much pine tree, much more subtle. Yeah, a subtle juniper astringency smell with the honey. This is actually pretty nice so far. I'm kind of impressed. You gonna taste it or just sniff it all day long? I shouldn't say that because I've been known to sniff an empty glass of various Isla whiskeys after it's gone, so, you know. Okay, this is not my taste. It's not my kind of flavors. But I can appreciate it for what it is. This is actually quite balanced. There's a good sweetness and a good astringency. That's why we do this final taste, just to make sure we don't need to do anything to it before it goes into the bottle.
I think it's good to bottle.
Yeah, that's all yours, babe. Now, you've seen us bottle and rack many times. Essentially, you put one vessel up here, you put another one down here. You use a bottling wand, racking wand, you use an auto siphon, and on the end of it, we have a bottling wand. Now, a lot of time you see us go right into a pitcher first, and then into the bottles. Today we're not doing that because there's really no need. I checked it. There's not a lot of lease in the bottom here. So I'm just going to drop the bottling wand into the bottom. She's going to hold the button down, also known as a stem valve. And I get the siphon going, and that's it. Now, someone asked me the other day, actually it was like today, I think, how do you bottle one-handed? Let me show you. It's really, really simple. If she was not here, I would have held that down myself, and I would take two fingers and do the pumping action this way. That's how I would do it. Then from there, it's really simple. I could probably, and I'm going to do it. Yeah, there's so little lease in there, no big deal. All right, so as you can see, we got like 4.5 bottles out of that. And that's why we like to use the larger fermenters down to the smaller fermenters and on down the line as we rack. Now, I wanted to point something out here too. If you look at this, that's how much was left in the bottom there. There was very little lease in here, and this is another advantage to racking. A lot of people lately have been saying, well, can I just drink it from the fermenter? Which is the most extreme example. All the way to, do I have to rack it? Can I just put it right from the fermenter into bottles? Well, if you skip the racking process, even one racking like we did, we broke our own rule on this one. We only racked it once. You skip out on this. Having just that tiny little bit of sediment at the bottom, that's kind of nice. It doesn't end up in your bottles. If I had not done that, we'd have a lot more. Now, I say this was racked once. Technically, it was racked twice because we did a rough rack the first time, which it was more than a rough rack. We took out a lot of the stuff. A lot of the colony probably came out too. So realistically, this was racked well enough. How's that sound? But anyway, that's the point on that. Racking gets rid of the lease, which means it doesn't end up in your brew, which means it doesn't end up in the bottom bottle, which means you don't hand this to a friend and go, hey, be careful when you get to the bottom because there's some stuff in there that you're probably not going to want to drink. And if they don't know anything about homebrew, they're going to go, what are you trying to give me here? And, so we don't really want to go there. Anyway, what are we going to do with these now?
We're gonna drink them.
Well, one of them we're going to drink, the taster, right away. And then one of these, will go away for a whole year. And you'll see another tasting on that a year from now. And we like to do that to see the differences and see how things age, because we know that they do. Yes, I'm aware that we can't taste them at the same time or next to each other, but we can compare notes, okay?
As soon as we get our TARDIS, we will do that.
Then we can totally do that.
In the past.
And that'll be awesome. And then we have 3 bottles here that Derek is probably going to drink fairly soon. Maybe not today, but within
You never know.
a reasonable amount of time. Anyway, if you like this video, look up. There's more. You should go watch them too.